Welcome, everybody, to another Off Street webinar. This is our first webinar of the year in the Big 2-6. So, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We're so excited to have you all here with us. We're just going to give it a few seconds, as usual, while the folks are getting settled in and joining us here on the Zoom. In the meantime, feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining us from today. I am personally located at the Off Street headquarters here in Regina, Saskatchewan. It's not too cold. I know everybody all over was experiencing a big cold front and some snow, so I hope everyone's staying warm and getting warm. It looks like we have some people from Victoria here. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us. Now, as usual, before we kick things off and get into the real content, I will start by introducing myself. My name is Kyle, and I am a marketing specialist here on the Off Street team. Now, we've got a really great session lined up for everybody. We'll be diving into some really exciting stuff with some people that I promise are much cooler than I am. Now, if you have any questions that come up during the session or at the end, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A section below. We will make sure we get to those in the Q&A time slot at the end. We highly encourage questions, so feel free to drop them in the chat as well. We'll make sure we try and get those as well. Now, but first, we have a question for you all. We are going to throw up a poll on the screen to catch a quick vibe from you guys. We want to know, when is parking usually brought into the event planning on your campus? Is it early? Is it part of the initial planning? Do they bring you in kind of somewhere in the middle? Or is it really late after all the details are set? Or is it very late when something usually goes wrong, is that's when you hear about it? So let us know, click those buttons on the poll. And while everyone is answering those questions or that question, I will kick this off by introducing our special guests joining us today. So, first up, we have Marlene Cramer. She is the Director of Transportation and Parking Services at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Now, Cal Poly spans over 9,000 acres. You can see these numbers on the screen. They serve 22,000 students to support 3,500 faculty and staff and manage more than 7,000 parking spaces across garages and surface lots. Now, when you're operating at scale, parking doesn't live in a silo. It touches events, academics, facilities, and daily campus life. Marlene brings up a really valuable perspective on what it takes to keep departments aligned when parking impacts so many moving parts. So thank you so much for being here, Marlene.
Great to be
And
here.
moving on, we also are joined by Mike Hamil. He is the Director of Parking at Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, or SIUE, as I often refer to them. SIUE spans 2,600 acres across 3 campuses. They serve 12,500 students, and they employ 2,500 faculty and staff and manage over 11,000 parking spaces across 72 surface lots with a very lean enforcement team supporting it all. You see that small little number 4 on that squad there. Now, Mike brings great insight into how parking teams coordinate across departments, balance resources, and keep operations running smoothly at scale, especially when alignment really matters. So thank you so much, Mike, for also being here to chat with us today.
It's my pleasure.
And last but not least, I'll introduce Matt Fallman, who is our CEO over here at Off Street. Now, Matt spends his days talking with parking and transportation teams across higher ed, hearing firsthand where coordination breaks down, where it works, and why parking so often ends up in the middle of everything. And he'll be moderating today's conversation and keeping us honest, keeping us on time, and hopefully a little entertained. I'll see what he has in store for us today. Now, without further ado, thanks again, Marlene, Mike, and Matt for all being here today. I'll now pass the metaphorical microphone off to Matt here to get into it with our panelists.
Well, thanks for coming, everyone. I noticed you didn't give me a nice background with by the numbers as well, and put the pressure on me to entertain. So really appreciate that start. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Fallman. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Offstreet, and we work with universities to help them manage their guest parking on campus. Yeah, so as Kyle said, I'll be moderating today. And I'd first like to thank both Marlene and Mike for taking the time out of their busy days to help us put this on. We really do appreciate it, guys. I'd also like to thank everyone who's attending right now. It means a lot to us. And a special shout out to our team, especially Kyle and Caitlin, who've done a lot of work organizing this behind the scenes, making it as easy as possible for me to not fumble the ball here. So thank you so much for that. My first question, and I'll start it by asking this to Marlene and then pass it to Mike. But how does parking fit into your campus's overall priorities, and which departments have the most influence on your guys' work?
Parking's it's a top priority on campus, just because of it's a resource that the campus needs to function. And in terms of, we work with a lot of our event hosts to make sure that we are getting that information out and that trickles down to everyone else using, parking on campus and hosting events. Uh, we'll get more into this later, but it's being on a university campus, we're in a constant learning curve. There's new people every year, every semester. And so we need to really be on our game to make sure that we are part of that education component with small and large hosts on campus.
Cool. Thanks, Marlene. I'll pass the same question to Mike.
As most of everybody would know that is on here, parking is not always the most loved department that a university or anything that deals with. Um, we do have. I work really close with one of the biggest departments that I work with is the admissions department on campus. We have a lot of tours and guests that come on campus and orientations and previews where we've got high school kids coming on campus to take tours and everything. So that's one of my biggest departments, and then my other biggest department that I work with is athletics, and that that I work really close with every day.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so you guys would know this super well, understanding your business, but one challenge you have obviously is just the number of stakeholders you have on campus, whether that's athletics and admissions, different departments, different events. You also need buy-in from your IT team and leadership on how things are run. So when it comes to getting department buy-in for either like changing a process or trying to get them to do what you'd like, what have you guys found that's been most successful to get buy-in? What has been least successful? And how are you framing parking as a partner for the campus rather than kind of a blocker or an afterthought? And I'll inverse the order this time and I'll start with Mike.
Okay, we on campus on our college just has switched over to LPR just as done. So we completely made a complete and utter change on campus. Uh, I I met with my team trying to figure out ways to be able to get this out, and I finally decided that I was just going to take an automatic front approach. And what I did was I started with some of the biggest departments on campus that used my other ways of temporary permits and stuff that I was using back in the day, and actually set up meetings with them and more or less created a presentation based solely around that department on on what we were doing with the LPR and how I was bringing off street into them, and actually spent 15 to 20 minutes just talking about how easy it was, the use was. And I haven't really got anybody that is not bought in really well. I'm actually to the point where I worked with my big departments, and then all of a sudden I started getting phone calls from smaller departments before I even got to them going, hey, I heard about this off street thing. Is there a way we can switch over to this instead of the permits that we do now? Because the way we did permits now, they would have to actually walk out of their office down to the parking lots and actually physically hand their visitors parking hang tags so they could put them in their window. This makes it so much more simpler for them.
So, Mike, thanks for the kind words. A follow-up to that, when you were setting up those meetings with the departments and actually like going to see them on site, did you find that helped like alleviate concerns just because you were there explaining it? Or like what do you think was kind of like the light bulb moment for them to be like, we're okay with change? Do you think just being in person helped?
I think in person, and then once I actually, I would actually, like I said, I would set it up more or less as a presentation. So I would be in a room on my computer, projecting my screen up onto my computer screen up onto a screen that they could all see, and I would actually I would set it up, set their department up as a tenant in off street, and actually show them and actually go step by step and actually do one to park. And it was like all of a sudden they're going, why haven't we had this so long? This is the easiest thing in the world. And I think that's what I got buy-in on campus on my other departments, because all of a sudden they just started flooding me with requests for off street.
Nice. Happy to hear that. Marlene, same question to you regarding kind of department buy-in.
Yeah, so, we kind of alluded to it in the last question. Parking's a necessary evil to get business done. And I think what we've done over the years, and, off-street being another very strong tool in our tool belt, is to put that on the host and to say, what kind of experience do you want your customers to have? And really having them think about that experience. These are the different experiences of kind of choose your adventure. But in terms of making sure not only that choose your adventure was not too complex, not too scary, going back to Mike's comment about the ease of off street, I think that is the huge appeal with the departments and the bigger event hosts on campus that we roll out off street too. But it's also, we know that parking experience can make or break us, whether there's a host or not. Right. So thinking about, what was the experience for that HR recruitment or that athletic recruitment or a donor, a prospective donor or whatnot. So we really have tried to tell the story of let's make it easy, let's make it convenient, include us early. Now that message just is it's a constant because of turnover. We all have I see there's many schools on here. There's large schools. When you have 3,500 people that work somewhere, there is going to be turnover. So what happens is trying to make sure that our obviously all the basics are up to date, website and all the handouts, all the presentations, all of that. But I'm not in a position like Mike to go to department. So really it has been word of mouth in terms of getting that word out that we can make this experience better and easier and actually put off street into the hands of our hosts so that they can take control of that experience as well. And that's been very successful.
So, Marlene, you guys will actually go meet with these stakeholders, and rather than saying, here's your process or we're doing X, you kind of give them some options. Hey, here's some of the options you guys have. What do you want to do? What's best?
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of that comes down to uh do you want you're hosting an event and you don't, for example, you don't want to pay for your host to park? Okay, well, these are the options that we have. We're gonna send them to our only visitor areas are in pretty remote locations. So they're going to go out to a remote location. They're going to pay, you know, uh, for their stay. It's not as and some opt for that, right? But most want the host to not have their guests worry about that experience. And the cool thing is that with the functionality of Off Street, we can actually put extra amenities in that experience, like, pin drop to the location so that we can say, hey, you don't need a directional signage package. You don't need a walking package. We can use Off Street to help your guests get to the location and have parking paid for or subsidize or whatever it is. And, the hosts like those options.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think if you can give people options and just kind of walk out, here's the pros and cons of each, let them make an informed decision. Ideally, they should be more bought into the process because they had some say in it. Okay, so
Exactly. And they know their guests, right? Sometimes we have guests that I'll give the example of the retired staff faculty group. Okay, different needs versus a student group coming on campus. And different needs and actually different budgets as well. So we need to be considerate of that in terms of what the options are. The price doesn't change, but we will give them the options in terms of what they like in terms of the amenities for their guest.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, all these guests, they are unique, right? Um, okay, so switching gears to kind of alignment. Um, How do you guys handle like resistance from departments, things like last minute changes, or just straight up like departments bypassing your group and not communicating instructions to guests? I'll start with Marlene.
Honestly, it usually doesn't work out well for the host because their guests are getting citations, their guests are upset, the host is getting feedback. They're directing them to an area where there's no parking availability. So it really is an opportunity for us to say, hi, include us. This is how we can avoid this. These are the options and go back to that. It's unfortunate when that happens. Fortunately, those incidents don't happen as much as, in times past because we have made it easier to host events and the word's getting out to to other department hosts. But uh, we try to mitigate it. Sometimes it's unavoidable. We just it's unfortunate, and we don't want that for the host or the guests because we're representing the university. We want them to have a good experience. So that's where, we go back to that and try to figure out where the information gaps are to plug those or to put that information out in different areas that maybe we didn't know existed.
Mike, same question to you.
I've actually, it's got to the point now where the resistance really isn't there. Uh, last minute requests are always going to be kind of a problem because there's always going to be last minute things that pop up. Uh, I will say that off street has made last minute a lot easier than what it used to be for me. Uh, because even if something happens, somebody calls me like right now that says they need, oh my gosh, I've got two guests coming on campus this afternoon, and I need to make sure they don't have get citations. I mean, all I do, I let them know. I said all I need is a plate number, and I can charge your account to their parking. I can have it done in 30 seconds. I mean, it helps a lot.
Mm.
The completely bypassing, that hasn't happened on my campus in a long time. We've got a pretty good events team that knows the ins and outs. I used to have that problem a lot with athletics. That was my biggest culprit. But now athletics within the last 4 years actually hired a former parking employee from a different college as one of the guy that kind of runs their facility stuff. So he knows how important the parking part is. So I'm included really quick on events with them. Uh, Resistance, I only have one department on my 3 campuses right now that is resisting the change to off street, and there it is, and it's the craziest thing is because they would be they're the perfect, and it would be so easy for them. It's my dental clinics in at my Alton campus. And what I've told them now is I'm just not going to enforce your lots. And when you've got a bunch of people parking in your patient lots, I'm not going to come and take care of it anymore until you decide to switch over and get, because there's no way of me telling who's who anymore because permits aren't in the cars. So
Yeah, it's tough. If you're not getting that buy-in from them and then that information, like you're really kind of, hands tied behind your.
yeah, it's kind of at the point where I have to try to kind of strong arm my way in now. So
Sometimes you have to do it, part of the game.
I
Uh,
think, yeah, another important thing about last minute requests, Matt, is it not only benefits our customer, but it benefits the internal customer and it benefits our team that they know they have a tool that they can use and deploy very quickly and seamlessly. And that has made a huge difference for us in terms of being so frustrated with the last minute and not having a solution to actually we wanted to do it, we just didn't have a solution. Or the solution was very time intensive, or we needed a lot of lead time to do it, which sometimes encourages bad behavior with our guests because they know we can do it last minute. Most are considerate. I also think that sometimes when you see, I thought of when Mike was talking about his dental clinic, our health center uses off-street as well to validate patients. They love it. It's worked out. They had a paper process and a paper permit process, and now it's so much easier and it's less work for them to be able to get these permits in hands to the patients. So it just takes time. I think once people realize how much easier and simpler it is, in terms of traditional paper permit processes or going to a pay station with codes, uh, you get buy-in.
Yeah, so just kind of jumping off that question, obviously everyone here who works in parking, you would know that change management is often challenging. Um, so I guess, Marlene, in your experience, you just kind of talked about when you're working with these departments, kind of pitching how this is easier for you personally, and it's easier for your guest. Have you found like what message resonates the most when you're trying to generate kind of change management and internal buy-in?
It's so simple. One of the things we just say is all you need is the license plate. You don't need any other information. That's it. Just the plate. Your guest only needs to put in the plate. There isn't a registration process. There isn't, name, address, credit card, all this stuff. Just the plate. And that alone has really been the big selling point, and in terms of like Mike said, demonstrating to them, doing a quick demo and showing them how it looks and how easy it is to do it. Really, and yeah, I think that's the number one convincer seller of the story for us in terms of going to something new. Uh, because usually people come to us with preconceived notions that if it's parking, it's going to be difficult and it's going to be painful. Uh, and showing them that no, we really want it back to the customer experience. We want it to be seamless, easy, and having that good experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Marlene. Okay. I know we only allocated kind of 20 minutes for the questions we had prompt, and I do want to give time to Q&A to the audience as well. Um, Kyle, do you want me to run through kind of the Q&A here, or what are your thoughts on how we should take that?
If you'd like to, you can. Otherwise, I can divvy those out for you.
Okay, I'll happily keep going. So I open the Q&A here. The first one is when creating a month-long event, can the parker register at any time and select the length of stay, then pay for the hours on site, instead of creating multiple time frames? Um, it's a nuanced question. Uh, Basically, when you're creating an event in off street, you're putting in defined start and expiry times. And so when the parker registers, they don't have an option of selecting their time. On the flip side, when you're creating like a permit type or a registration setting, you can put in that flexibility to let the parker select the number of hours that they're paying for. So the short answer is yes, we can accomplish that. The direct answer is not through the event feature. It's kind of a two-sided answer, but that's probably the most accurate way to describe it. Um, Next question. On the event page, can the wording under help and support be edited? Yes, it can. So that is a setting at the company level that your team has access to edit, or we can edit it. And then you can add a different contact in the support answer in terms of email and phone number. It's the next question. Um, okay, I'm gonna keep ripping through these. Do some of these campuses have free parking on certain days? And has that been an issue as far as communication since introducing off-street? That's a great question.
I
Um,
can I can answer that. So we unfortunately at my campus have a historical practice of not enforcing permits after 5 p.m. on Friday all the way to 7 a.m. on Monday. The issue is that we do have events and we require event permits in those event lots. So yes, parking is free, but not in those designated event lots. And in those designated event lots is where we would set up off-street. So that becomes an issue. And back to consistency, we have a lot of problems with this just by design because people go, oh, parking's free at Cal Poly on the weekend. I'm going to invite my, 200 people for this department event, and they give them information, and then they show up on campus and we're hosting a football game or a soccer game or, a youth clinic or something. And it causes a lot of friction. And back to, we have to say, hey, work with us. There's a lot of events going on campus. Even though permits are not enforced, we have to manage the resources for events. And this is how we do it. And this is why you need off street. So you to use off street. So that's how we deal with it here on campus. But again, it's by poor design. I'm trying to get that changed so that there's more consistency with just 7 day enforcement. And mainly these campus hosts, it would be better for them because they're making assumptions about free parking.
nice. Thanks for taking that, Marlene, because I did not have a great answer. Um, okay, the next one. How do you handle departments who need guest permits? However, they either don't know the plate due to it being a rental vehicle, or they don't want to inconvenience the guest. We're using T2 and mobile LPR. Yeah, good question. So, in my experience, when you're dealing with a guest coming to campus, most of them will register in advance. They often get sent the link in advance, but not all do. And what we recommend for those who don't register in advance is to have the host print off the QR code associated with the event. And then it's a simple check-in process when you get here. Have you registered for parking? If yes, great. If no, just scan the QR code, enter in the plate. If they don't want to be inconvenienced, I mean, the best way I'd describe it to the guest is just tell them, give me your license plate. I'll put you in the system. Um, and that's as simple as we can make it. Otherwise, you risk getting a ticket.
And I was going to say the same exact thing. That is pretty much verbatim on how my policy works with my department.
Nice. Okay. I know we're coming up on time, so I'm going to keep going through these. Is there a way for a department to pay for guest parking with an account number while sharing the reservation info with our garage staff? Um, Yeah, so basically, um, to clarify, Off-Street isn't going to charge the department through our system. What we're going to do is allow the departments to issue those permits, and then your team will run a report and see how much they actually used, how many permits they actually issued, as well as the rate associated with it, and then you would bill through your internal system. But yeah, you could have the guest register in advance and then have on-site staff have access to that list of registrations so they could check them as they come in, if that was the idea there. Okay. I see another one from Sherry. Once a guest has registered their vehicle, if there is a change to the event after they've registered, lot location or time change, is there a way for me as parking to edit their registration or send a push notification to alert the guest to review the changes? So this is a great question. Um, the short answer is as of today, when you update that date and time, we're not retroactively updating existing permits. So that's not the best way to manage that. We are working for a way to manually or basically automatically updating those permits as well. And then the challenge comes down to communication. So um, if the guest had provided us an email, that would enable us to send them those changes. But if they just put in their plate and hadn't, well, now there's no way to communicate that. So the nuance would be to support this, we would have to require like email or phone number or something so we can contact them and alert them to the change. Otherwise, we could change it, but they won't know, so it won't really make a difference. Hope that answers your question too.
Yeah, Sherry, we usually put that on the host to communicate that out. We don't, we rarely, if ever, have a lot change. But if there's some information change with the location of the event, that would go through the host.
Okay, see one. How has Off-Street helped with commencement or move-in uh, if there are a number of permits assigned per student? So I actually just ran Jodine could talk about this more, but she worked with CSU East Bay on their commencement, and I believe the logistics were every student was issued two permits. I could be wrong on that, but I think that was the scenario. And so yeah, we helped manage that digitally, where basically we were able to issue a link for the specific commencement, and it listed the different dates and times and what ceremony they're attending, and then would allow them to create a permit and that permit could have up to two license plate numbers, but capped at that. And so that was kind of the solution for them. So yes, we have helped. Actually, we've done a lot with commencement too. It's pretty common, um, just because it's a great example of how do we get guest permits out to a large number of people.
Awesome. Okay, it looks like I'm just gonna pull one more from the chat here from Benny, and I'll throw it over to you guys. It says, "Can we use Off-Street to offer flex passes to select groups of people and then retirees that they can use until they run out of the number of passes issued? Can we bill for these permits differently instead of through the university's account for payment?"
Yeah, great question, Benny. Um, the short answer is yes, we can offer that type of flex pass. However, we don't have a really great native solution to bill up front for individual uses. So we have done this in the past. It's a little bit manual, but the idea is you could have a stakeholder basically be given a link to register for a permit, and they would get a custom code assigned to them. So everyone has their own code. And then in the back end, we would just program in the rules to say this code can be used no more than 10 times. Once the 10 has been hit, the code's no longer eligible. So that's kind of the user flow. The billing process is a little nuanced. Typically, the best way we've done that is by just billing them once up front for like the equivalent of 10 codes or 10 permits. And then after they've done that, issuing them an email that has, here's your link and here's your code to actually redeem these.
Yeah, I want to add, we actually use that same type of system for our van pool program. One of the benefits of our, as a van pool riders, you get 2 free staff parking permits a month. So we use off-street and have gone away from paper permits being issued to all the van poolers, and they have their unique code, and it's used up, 2 uses per month, and it works great. So consider the options of using it for outside of events as well. It can be used for other solutions where you have to get a certain number of permits in hand for an event. And we also use off-street. We're using off-street for our open house this year, which is our largest event of the year, even larger than commencement or move-in, because we have open house and then we're hosting a collegiate rodeo, which is the largest collegiate rodeo in the country with like 15,000 people coming. So we have a lot going on, and we're going to use off-street this year to help facilitate all the permit needs, because it's a very difficult event to manage because it happens during a regular work day, school day, and then we have all the tens of thousands of invited attendees to open house. So um, we have to get really creative on where we put everyone, but we're gonna definitely use off street for the areas that we do have limited permits and pre-sell those areas to get everything on campus pre-sold.
Awesome. Marlene, that rodeo sounds awesome. I might have to throw on my cowboy hat and make my way over there.
Yes, yes, tickets go on sale February 11th. So
Sweet. I'll be in line
email
waiting
me
for
if you're
some.
interested. Yeah, it's an awesome event.
Fun. Okay. That is seems to be all the questions we have right now in the Q&A and in the chat. Thank you everybody for being so inquisitive and involved. We love to see it. Um, we are going to wrap things up here now. So thanks everyone. Thanks to Marlene, Mike, and Matt as well for all coming to this wonderful webinar and sharing their insights and answering questions from everyone. But that is all the time we have. So if anyone would like more information, please reach out to the Offshoot team and we would be more than happy to chat with you or help you with anything you need. Another huge shout out again, Marlene, Mike, and Matt. Thanks for being here. We do have a QR code on the screen to scan to read the SIUE case study that we just published here just a week or two ago. It talks all about how they went fully digital and how they got a lot of departmental buy-in. Mike is featured in this case study with some really good quotes and some advice, so be sure to check that out. And Marlene dropped in the chat. Feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. Have a great rest of your week. And I see that there is a question in the Q&A. Suzanne, if you're still here, if you guys still have time, you want to answer that really quickly for Suzanne. It says, are either campuses charging parkers for parking or only through department recharge?
As of right now, we are only using it for department recharge.
Cal Poly does both.
Ooh. Okay, good question and great answers. Awesome. That is all the time we have. Thanks, Suzanne, for the question there. And if there is any burning questions that we didn't get to that come up later, feel free to shoot us a message. Thanks everyone for coming and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike and Marlene. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.